Okay, I'll start with my PowerPoint slide, so hopefully that's what you're seeing. So MnDOT has been using the Clear Guide program for about 3 years now. It's a product from Iteris, and it actually utilizes the HERE probe data. So this is very similar to like some of the INREX tools or RIDIS tools that you've probably seen or may already be using as well. To give you kind of a sense of how we're using it here in Minnesota, we have the real-time data coming from here. We get data within 5 minutes. It is for all state highways statewide. And we've also found that in some of our metro areas that they've also given us access to some of our more local roads as well, some of our higher volume local roads, whether it's county or city roads, which has been real nice in terms of being able to monitor any kind of detour routes that may be occurring because of a work zone on the state highway system. And so some of the areas of how we've been using Iteris Clear Guide, we use it to identify locations of recurring congestion, whether it's bottlenecks or poor signal timing. We use it for tracking delays during work zones, both within the work zone and on the detour routes. That's what I'll be kind of focusing on today. We've used it for conducting before and after studies of signal retiming benefits, and also looking at it to measure delays due to traffic incidents or due to weather. So we've used it for like incident management debriefings, but also even kind of used it to look at some of the impacts that like snowstorms can have even in kind of greater Minnesota outside the Twin Cities metro area. We also did a project where we integrated it with our Iteris software. So Iteris is our ATMS software system that controls our changeable message signs as well as all of our field devices. And so we had Iteris develop a module both within Iteris and also within Clear Guide to be able to calculate travel times using the HERE probe data. So historically, our travel times were calculated using just our traffic sensor data, which really limited us to just kind of metro area freeways only. So we couldn't do anything in arterials. We couldn't really do anything outside of the metro. And also work zones were always a challenge in that we would either lose our detection or we'd have to put in temporary detection and pay a lot of money for that temporary detection to keep our travel times up and running. So this has been a nice feature for us in being able to kind of expand where we can do travel times by utilizing that HERE data as opposed to just being limited to the traffic sensor data. Another tool that we use that's similar, uses kind of the similar probe data is Streetlight. And so I kind of threw this slide in here just at the end here before I show the actual Clear Guide demo. Streetlights used more for origin destination patterns. You can also look at like bike ped and transit data as well. Get a sense for where folks are coming from in terms of who's using the corridor. It's a great kind of planning tool, provides some basic travel time data along corridors in kind of 15-minute intervals. But there is a little bit of a lag time. It takes them a while to compile that data. They kind of provide it like a month at a time. So there's a few weeks there. So it's really good for a planning tool, but maybe not the best for like a real-time data analysis, especially when you're looking at like your work zones and stuff. So that's why we kind of went with Clear Guide, which gets us things in more real-time data. We're also able to use it for providing those travel times, but also in that real-time monitoring that we can watch things as they're happening. So I kind of liken it to two screwdrivers here. They're both very similar, but they do kind of have kind of separate utility to them. And that was kind of a challenge for us in terms of trying to request to upper staff that, hey, we need money for Streetlight. Hey, we need money for Clear Guide. Well, aren't they kind of the same thing? They're all using cellular probe data. And it's really, beyond that raw data, they have quite a bit of difference when it gets to actually the reporting tools and what they're capable of and what their uses are. Both very useful tools in their own right, but they do have their different intents. So with that, I'm going to focus more on the Clear Guide one because like I said, that's more of the one that we're going to be using for kind of work zone analysis, especially when we're looking at things in more real time. So I'm going to switch to a web browser here and talk through the different screens here for Clear Guide. So this is kind of the base map showing the routes that are available in Clear Guide. If I kind of back out, you can see more of the state of Minnesota, although some of the routes start to disappear at that zoom level. But if I zoom in on the Twin Cities, you'll start to see more of those secondary routes coming up besides just the freeways and interstates, and even getting closer down into the downtown areas where a lot of the downtown grid starts to show up and such. One project in particular that just started on Monday, I can show you here live, is on our east end of the cities here. between the cities and the Wisconsin border. Just started up a permanent lane closure that'll last for the next few months. And so I can go back and kind of show you here in real time the congestion delays here as I kind of slide my cursor over. So you can see the amount of congestion we've got here eastbound for about a 5-6 mile stretch of I-94 with some pretty significant delays there. So I can dig into that a little deeper and see the travel times. But one of the things I wanted to kind of show was the ability to also look at this county road to the north and seeing this red as well. And, you know, trying to get an understanding, well, is that kind of typical for this route, or is that something that's, you know, diverting traffic that's going to that corridor? So I can very quickly create a route, much like you would do like in Google Maps, just, you know, start and endpoints. It snaps a line to that corridor. I can also have that, you know, follow like a different path if I wanted to too, and not just necessarily follow one corridor, but multiple corridors. And then once I hit create, then I can go in and look at some of the data related to that. And so I already did that in advance, so we didn't have to sit here and watch it think. But this is the travel times over the last 7 days. So starting like the middle of last week. And so you can see this corridor, you know, typically doesn't have much congestion on it. It's pretty much just free flowing. But starting on Monday, we started seeing some backups there, about a 20-minute delay, 30-minute travel time over what would normally be about a 10-minute travel time. So that was the same time that our 94 construction started. So it would look like that, yes, this route is seeing additional congestion on this county road compared to what it would normally experience because of that congestion or because of that construction rather on the interstate. So it's a very quick and easy tool to be able to kind of monitor that overall performance of the region and not just the route in question. A couple other tools. This map is showing travel time index. This is actually from May of 2021 in the afternoon. And so anything in red is showing a travel time index greater than 1.5. And then the color gradations you can see on the legend down below, which are customizable. But then I compared that to from May of 2021 to May of 2022. Whoops, I guess I missed one here. Sorry about that. I'll got my tabs in the wrong order here. This chart is actually a new one that we're just kind of experimenting with here now. I might as well kind of talk about it a little bit. This is a new product from Iteris where they can show more of the raw speed data. Normally our speed data just shows us kind of what the average speed is out there. Very good for traffic operations in terms of looking at travel times and travel time reliability. But what it doesn't really tell you is in terms of enforcement. It doesn't tell you like what percentile people are driving over the speed limit or what percentile are driving over a certain speed. So this map is showing areas, the percentile of traffic that are driving greater than 85 miles an hour. So that would be, you know, anything that's kind of highlighted in those darker purples would be areas that, you know, we might want to focus in on added enforcement, and can be especially useful if looking at like work zones, if we want to do some increased work zone enforcement. So that's a new tool that we just started demoing ourselves. So we haven't even really dug into it much, but another product from Iteris here. Here's the two I wanted to compare. So this is May of 2021 and then May of 2022. That other tab got kind of snuck in between the two there. But we can see kind of the increased amount of travel time index due to just traffic volume slowly kind of returning to normal. Seems like the Twin Cities has been kind of slower maybe than some other cities in returning to normal post-COVID. We're still down by about 2 to 3% or so, which is still creating about, you know, much more significant decrease in congestion. But the one area in particular is in this Northwest Metro. You can see all this red from last year. That was a stretch of roadway that was under construction. And then, you know, now this year it's improved because the construction is over. So another kind of work zone application there. Digging a little bit more into the details. This is a corridor on East 494 down in the Southeast Metro of the Twin Cities. You can see it's normally been pretty light in terms of congestion, but then starting on June 7th, we got some pretty significant congestion. And so this is a contour plot, you know, showing the congestion levels over time and space. And I can see it, you know, on a day-to-day basis. The project lasted for about 2.5 weeks. So you can see by the 28th, things got kind of back to normal. But you can definitely see the amount of congestion and delay that was caused, especially on that first day. And if I click on it, then I can zoom in a little bit closer and just see that one day in particular. So I can kind of hover over it and see, at 6:45 in the morning, congestion was starting, and there was really congestion all the way until 7:50 at night. So really, 12 plus hours of congestion. And then I can see how far back it's going. There's kind of a distance mile here. So it's starting at like mile marker 7, going back to about 5. But at its worst extent, it's going back to kind of the beginning of the corridor there. So a good 7 miles of backup. If I want to look at that in a different way, I've got the travel times as well. So here's kind of similar to the plot I showed earlier with that detour route, but this is on Interstate 494, where our travel time shot through the roof here of being greater than an hour for a corridor that normally takes only about 11 minutes. So there was well over an hour of delay on those first couple of days. And then you can see as people find new routes or maybe change their time of day of travel, things get a little bit better as the week goes on. But still some pretty major delays from that project. It's a river crossing, 4 lanes in the eastbound direction that was taken down to 2 lanes. So a pretty substantial capacity restriction due to that work zone. This one here, not a whole lot to see here, but what this is a list of alerts that I've set up. What it does is I can go into these and set up like what routes I want as part of this alert. I can set up like what thresholds. I can have it send out an email alert if I have excessive delay, high travel time, low speed, unusual congestion, or if there's a closure on that route. This is a new feature. We've had ClearGuide for about 3 years, like I said, but this one we just activated in the last month. And so you can set some of the thresholds yourself, still kind of tweaking, trying to figure out what the best threshold is so you don't get too many false positives and stuff. But it's a way that we can kind of monitor some of these work zones. And if maybe there was an incident in the work zone that caused some more excessive delay, it can send out an alert to either traffic operations folks or a project engineer, whoever I want to have this alert go to. So we're still kind of playing around with that, but that's something new that ClearGuide has to offer as well. Moving away from ClearGuide then, some of the other stuff we've done with crowdsourcing data is we're just starting to get kind of into the Waze data. We're pulling Waze into our 511 system. And so we have our citizen reports are showing up as these blue icons. So this would be anything that a Waze user would have reported. So I can see here's like a road construction activity that was reported by a Waze user. And then we've got some of these orange ones are ones that the Waze system is identifying. So the Waze system is identifying some moderate traffic jams on this corridor based on just the data they're getting back from their probe. So we kind of highlight those differently just based on the different sources. And then that shows up as a different layer from just like our regular events, like our normal road reports that we would have that would be entered in by our staff, but it helps kind of supplement that information by getting that Waze stuff in there. Right now, we're just using it as purely just displaying it to the customer, to the motorist, like you see here. We're trying to figure out kind of the next steps of, how do we make this information digestible to our operators and our TMC. We do have some filters in here that it needs to be an event that gets a lot of positive affirmations that it's out there. So it's not just like a one-time person, throwing an event in there, but that it's gotten confirmation from others. Plus, Waze users that maybe have higher credentials or whatever the term would be. So we have some filters like that so we don't get too much clutter, but we are kind of finding that there is a lot of noise in the data even yet. So we probably need to kind of, refine those thresholds a little bit, because especially on some that just say there's a stalled vehicle or there's a hazard, like a piece of debris, and we'll try to find it on camera, or we'll send one of our service patrol vehicles in the area, and a lot of them end up being kind of unfounded. So we're still trying to kind of work through that. As to what the best way is to kind of digest this Waze data so that we're not getting inundated by some of the noise that's there. So with that, let's see, I can just kind of go through a couple extra slides here to wrap up. So kind of where I left off with streetlight, just a couple of other representations. Here was a work zone on Interstate 35 north of the cities that kind of goes up towards the Duluth area. And so we were seeing kind of routine congestion on every Friday weekend, or every Friday before the weekend, as people are heading up north, or I guess in this case, actually, it's the Sunday for people coming back. So a lot of very heavy extreme delays, especially on some of those holiday weekends like Memorial Day and 4th of July. Just another kind of way of looking at it, looking at the minimum, average, and maximum speeds along that corridor, or travel times rather. This is kind of more of a just looking at it from a map basis, since it's so much work zone related, but looking at the kind of migration back to the metro after Memorial Day weekend. So we can see all the corridors that kind of head back to the metro with all people coming back from the cabins and resorts, how much additional congestion that causes. And actually the one on the right is that that work zone in question. This was made worse by that single lane construction that was going through there. And here's how we've used it during blizzards. This is actually showing a speed anomaly. So it's not really showing, you know, what the congestion is, but how the speeds varied depending on what would normally be occurring out there. And so this kind of southeast part of the state was getting hit by a blizzard, and you can see how traffic, it's not necessarily congested, but they're slowing because of the reduced visibility and snow impacts. And then the black in the lower left is actually because that section of I-90 was closed due to the storm. This is another kind of one of those monthly contour plots. This one's a little bit harder to see, but this is looking at arterial traffic data, and they did a signal retiming change on the 14th. Takes a little bit of looking at, but if you do look like at all the data after the 14th, there is a slight improvement there. So you can kind of start to see a little bit visually how the signal retiming helped improve that corridor. And that's it for me. So I'll pass it back to Greg.